Good evening, Internet family. Hope you're having a wonderful night. I guess I'll read these. I don't know why I didn't just try to put them on. Very. I think everybody's kind of out and about doing their own thing tonight. So we'll see. We'll see. Anybody is bored or lonely tonight, don't feel bad. I'm alone too. The noise you hear is a YouTube relaxing fire sounds, fireplace, bonfire. If it's too loud, let me know. I hope y'all are having a very good night wherever you are in the world. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I got some new lights. I figured they would be kind of like mood lighting in a way. My daughter gave me this leaf today. It was so pretty. It like went the same exact color as like everything else. You're not part of I might have to put it back up there another time. I can't get it off. So tonight, and hopefully I don't get banned for this because I don't know what the rules are. But tonight, I'm going to continue with starting with chapter 3, continuance from last night. I don't know if you guys can see it, Kiss of the Highlander. It's a romance novel, 18 plus only stream. Does talk about sex and probably like murder and stuff like that. Because yeah, so if you're interested, come on in, get something comfy, get some snacks. Which I actually got some cool snacks today. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this or not. I know it's a hit overseas. It's like little chocolates, and they have hazelnut and caramel and stuff like that in them, and they're pretty good. I don't know if you're familiar with Ferrero. Yeah, grab you something to drink, something to eat, get comfy, and I'm going to read you a bedtime story. Ooh, these look good. I can't even pronounce the words in this. Yandua Ferrero. Hmm. Kind of neat because they have different funky little shapes to them. Anyway, I was live downtown. It started getting really cold. Not like it's any better in the camper, but still. And so yeah, came home, doing live. Probably could have stayed out and hung out with people, and especially like Bubba Speece. You know, he's out and about tonight. I just missed him as I was leaving Josh, so I think it was Josh. That's his name, right, Josh? I apologize if it's not. Perryman. I have to look up his name. I remember his last name. But I thought it was interesting that the other day I had a Dr. Perry on my stream that I just met in Walmart. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are some people on the stream um, that are familiar with him. So that's kind of cool. Let me see if I can get to join. Can't find me on YouTube. Hmm. I wonder what the link is. Hold on. Hope it doesn't shut it down. Trying to share the link because there's some people that want to join. I love it. All right. Hope y'all are having a wonderful evening. Hope you join me. I apologize if this is a little too loud. Let me know. I can't tell if it is or not. Let me share this link real quick. I always have to look like behind the behind the candle. I'm gonna move it over for a second. I hope that's it. I don't know how it works. Always fun. Something new every time. Learn something new every day. All right. I feel like everybody's avoiding me like the plague. I have a tendency to bug people to death. So, all right. Romance novel. But yeah, this is how it looks. If you're interested in a Ferrero box, that's what it looks like. So, I don't know. I got it like Dollar General or something. Was wondering if you would want to join me. I always like people joining me. Let me see if I can get it to. Alright. Super bright. Alright. I'm gonna show it to you like up close. I don't know if it's supposed to look. Oh yeah, it does. These might have been like from last year. Who knows? Either way, whatever. All right. So again, Karen Marie Moaning, Kiss of the Highlander, and we're in chapter 3. If you like to go back to hey comrade kid. If you like to go back to get the beginning of the book, just go back to my last stream. Just trying to make sure everybody can get in. Okay. Hope you're having a good night. All right. Oh gosh, I can't even say this name either. Dresden McPelter was worried, although there was nothing he could put his finger on, apart from the remarkable fire she possessed, her shameless attire, and her unusual manner of speaking. He couldn't shake the feeling that even more significant fact was eluding him. Initially, he thought maybe he was no longer in Scotland, and then he'd informed him he was mere 3 days' hike from his home. Mayhap he lost several days, even a week. Well, I'm glad, comrade. Mayhap he'd lost several days, even a week. He shook his head, trying to clear it. He felt the same as he had once before when he was a young lad. He had had a high fever and woken over a week later, confused, thick-witted, his normal lightning-fast instincts slowed. His reactions were further dulled because of his lust was thundering through his veins. A man couldn't think clearly when he was aroused. All his blood was being sucked to one part of his body. And while it was one of his finer parts, cool and logical didn't describe it. The last thing he remembered prior to awakening with the English lass sprawled so wantonly atop him was that he had been racing towards the little loch in the glen behind his castle, and growing unnaturally weary. From there, his memories were blurred. How had he ended up in a cave in a 3 days' hike away from his home? Why couldn't he remember how he had gotten there? He hadn't seemed to have suffered any injury, indeed. He felt hearty and hale. He struggled to recall why he had been running toward the loch. He paused, as a tide of fragment memories washed over him. A sense of urgency, distant voices chanting, incense and snatches of conversation. He must never be found. And a curious reply. We will hide him well. He had his petite English been there? Nay. The voices had been oddly accented, but not like hers. Accented, I apologize. Had been oddly accented, but not like hers. He quickly discarded the possibility damn it. No, I get mad related to this. That she had aught to do with his plight. She didn't seem the brightest lass, nor particularly strong. Still, a woman of her beauty didn't need to be. Nature had given her all the gifts that she needed to survive. A man would use all his skills as a warrior. God bless it. Am I still alive? Because this is really aggravating me. It keeps kicking me off. Comrade, you still with us? The month? He asked roughly. September. Her reply hit him like a fist in his stomach. The last afternoon that he had recalled had been on the 18th day of August. How near Mabon? She regarded him strangely, and her voice was strained when she said, Mabon? The autumnal equinox. She cleared her throat uncomfortably. It is the 19th of September. The equinox is the 21st. Christ, he'd lost nearly a month. How could that be? He pondered the possibilities, sorting and discarding, until he struck upon one that horrified him because it seemed the only explanation that fit the circumstances. Once he had been lured into the clearing, he had been abducted. But, assuming that he had been abducted, how could he have lost an entire month? The unnatural exhaustion he experienced while running toward the glen suddenly made sense. Someone had drugged him in his own castle. That was how his captors had managed to take him, and apparently they'd been keeping him drugged. And that someone could, even now, be returning to the cave to force him to slumber again. That would not find him so easy to take captive a second time. He bowed silently. Are you afraid? She asked hesitantly. Sorry. She shook her. He shook his head, his thoughts grim. Come, he warned before he dragged her along behind him. She was so small that it would have been easier to toss her over his shoulder and run with her, but he sensed that she would vociferously, vociferously resist such treatment, and he cared not to waste time arguing. She was fine boned and petite, yet prickly as a hungry boar. She was so lushly curved and scandalously clad, and stirred a cauldron of lustful urges in him. He glanced over his shoulder at her. Whoever she was, wherever she was from, she was unaccompanied by a man, and that meant she was going home with him. The last made his heart pound and his blood roar. When he'd awakened, he found her on top of him. He'd responded fiercely. The moment he'd touched her, he'd been loath to let go, had slipped his hands. Gosh, this book is so old. Had slipped his hands up her silky legs and been captivated by the notion that mayhap she removed all of her body hair. He would find out as soon as his plight permitted. Hope y'all are having a good night. In the fierce Highlands of Scotland, possession was 9/10 of the law, and Driston McKeltar was the other 1/10. Driston was Brehon, or lawgiver. He would recite the lineage of his clan back for a millennia, directly to the ancient Irish Druids and of that of Tuatha De Danann, a feat worthy of a Druid bard. No one questioned his authority. He had been born to rule. Whence did you hail, English? My name is Gwen Cassidy, she said stiffly. He repeated her name. "'Tis a good name. Cassidy is Irish, and I'm Durston McClure, Kilter, Laird of the Kilter. My people made their home in Ireland for more centuries, many centuries, before we took these highlands as our home. Have you knowledge of my Dan clan? Sorry. Why had he been abducted, and once taken, why not killed? What must his father be making of his disappearance? Then a worse thought occurred to him. Was his father still alive and unharmed? Fear for his father's safety gripped him, and he repeated his question impatiently. I've never heard of your family. You must hide from across the border. How come you here? I'm on vacation. On what? Vacation. I'm visiting, she clarified. Have you no clan in Scotland? No. Then whom do you visit? Who accompanies you? Sorry for my accent, because that's the best I can do as far as like that area. That's my sad attempt at like Scottish. Like I don't know. Don't mind me. I'm crazy. You'll get used to it. Women did not travel without escort or clan, and certainly did not dress the way that she was. Although she knotted a blue fabric around her waist before they left the main cavern, It failed to conceal her shocking undergarments. The woman had no shame at all. No one accompanies me. I'm a big girl. I do perfectly well on my own. There was a defiant note in her voice. Have you no any clan left, lass? Anyone alive? He asked more gently. Mayhap her family had been massacred, and she displayed her body reluctantly in hopes of finding a protector. She comforted herself with the stiff bravado of an orphaned wolf cub, conditioned by savagery and starvation to snap at any hand, no matter what it, that it might hold food. She glared at him. My parents are dead. Toe Jam! Hope you're having a good night. I'm trying so hard not to cough. I really am. I don't know what the deal is. I think it's this book. I really do. Either that or it's the heater, and it's really triggering like the daylights out of my lungs right now. And plus the fact that like this pillow is not anywhere near me. I have a special thing to open later. If you'd like to join me, I got a package in the mail today, and it's from a fan. And I have a feeling it belongs in the 18 plus category. So yeah. All right. I don't know. I feel like if I turn the heater away from him, you're freezing. Gosh. All right. Let's try this again. My parents are dead. Oh, lass, I'm sorry. Shouldn't you be busy trying to find a way out of here? She changed the subject swiftly. He found the display of roughness affected by the woman so obviously weak and helpless touching. It was evident that her loss of her clan was still difficult for her to speak of, and far be it from him to press such a discussion. He knew too well the pain of losing a loved one. Ugh, but 'tis just ahead. See the daylight sifting through the stones. We can break through there. He let the flame go out, and they were swallowed by darkness, broken by a few thin trickles of light a dozen yards ahead. As they drew nearer, Gwen eyed the rubble blocking the tunnel with disbelief. Even you can't move those boulders. She knew so little about him. The only question was whether he would do it using his body or his other arts. Eager to be quit of the cave, he knew using his druid skills that he what would be the fastest way out. It would also be the fastest way to ensure that he would never get her in his bed. A display of such unnatural power had driven three of his betrothed from his life. The fourth had been killed 2 weeks past. Nay, he amended a month and a half ago, if it truly was. Almost Mabon. And I think that, like, I'm probably saying this wrong. Like, Mabon. If you know anything about it, let me know. But Mabon. With his brother Dagus, who had been escorting her to the Castle Kelter for the wedding. He closed his eyes against the fresh wave of grief. It still felt like 2 weeks ago to him. He'd never met his bride to be. Although he mourned her death, he grieved the loss of a potential wife, grieved the cutting short of so young a life, not a woman herself. Dagus, on the other hand, that was a bitter and burned grief within his breast. He closed his eyes firmly, corralling the pain to be dealt with at a later time. Since his brother had died, it was even more critical that he beget an heir, and soon. He was the last McKelter left to sire sons. He glanced speculatively at Gwen. Nay, he would use no druid magic to move the stones in her presence. He studied the stone blockade for a few moments before launching a simple physical assault. But he didn't merely put his arms into the job, he put his entire body into it. Aware that she had dropped to her knees on the floor of the tunnel and was watching his every move, he might have flexed a bit more than necessary to demonstrate what a prize she might enjoy in her bed. Anticipation was an important part of the bed play and heightened the woman's ultimate satisfaction immeasurably. Never let it be said that there wasn't an expert and attendant and never let it be said he wasn't an expert and attentive lover. The seduction began long before he removed a woman's clothing. Women might not like the thought of wedding with him, but they vied in masses for the pleasure of his bed. Digging them out was a time consuming task from how tightly the stones were packed. The crevices beneath them sealed in the dust of time. He guessed this branch of the tunnel had collapsed a long time ago and been forgotten. He dug and tossed and cleared out into smaller rocks before turning his attention to the larger ones. Using his axe as a lever to push and roll them, before long he had cleared a small passage. Thick lay secluded to look for such a cave in such a place. It was apparent that he hadn't been brought to the inn via this tunnel. That much foliage couldn't have grown in a month. He glanced over his shoulder at her. She raised a guilty gaze from his legs, and he grinned. "You've not to fear," he assured her. "Freeing us is easy. 'Tis the hike that will be tiring." "What hike?" He didn't bother to answer her, but returned to his labor. The sooner they got out, the sooner he would devote attention to her seduction. Of course, it would have to so happen while they were traveling back to his castle, for he dare not waste time. After widening the opening, he used his sword to hack through dense overgrowth obscuring the entrance. When he finally cleared a passage he deemed safe enough to accommodate them, she hurried to his side. He realized she would bolt out of the opening and sprint away if he gave her the opportunity. "Step back while I go through," he commanded. "Ladies first," she said, sweetly. He shook his head. "You'd bound off faster than a hare if I were such a fool." He grasped her shoulders and pulled her close. "I'd advise against running from me. I would catch you easily, and the chase would only arouse me." When she tried to shrug his hands off of her shoulders, he said, "Is this a fashion in which you thank me for freeing you?" he teased. "You might grant me a boon for my efforts." He rested his gaze on her lips, making it clear what boon he had in mind. When she wet them nervously, he dropped his head closer, taking it as a sign of compliance. But to the contrary, the lass flattened her wee palms on his cheeks and held him at bay. "Fine. Go first, then." "Age before beauty," she nodded sweetly. "Arrogant lass," he said with a snort, grudgingly admiring her audacity. "Give me your pack." After producing the remarkable fire from within it, he was confident that she wouldn't try to flee from him without it in her possession. I'm not giving you my pack. Then we're not moving, he said flatly. And no longer I stand here in such tempting proximity. She smacked him in the chest with it hard, and he laughed. Her cheeks flushed when he said, Temper, temper, we English. 'Tis truly the most becoming of you. What a lovely spitfire she was, scarce taller than a child and voluptuously curved, plainly old enough for carnal pleasure. Aye, he'd take her back to the castle of Kelta. Mayhap he would prove an amendable companion, perhaps more. Mayhap he could have his fifth betrothed, and he thought wryly and promised that he'd actually get her to the altar. He'd not met a woman so uncowed by him. It was refreshing. With his height and size, not to mention whispers circulating about the McKeltar in the Highlands, he frightened lasses more often than not. He maneuvered himself through the opening, then took her hands and helped her scramble through, enjoying the feel of her small hands in his. Transferring his grip to her waist, he lifted her out. He didn't lower her to her feet right away, but gazed challengingly into her eyes as he slid her down his body, enjoying the firm thrust of her nipples against his chest. The friction was delicious, and he felt her knees wobble for a moment before she found her feet. If retreat was the measure of her desire, she desired him fiercely. She scrambled away from him with an alarmed expression the moment her toes touched the ground. He stared at her. He stared at her nipples now puckering peaks beneath her chemise. She glanced down and defiantly crossed her arms across her lovely breast. Baring her teeth in a ferocious little scowl, he laughed, because he succeeded only in pushing the generous mounds together enough, increasing his desire to bury his face in her plump cleavage tenfold. What do you think? Every time I hear this story, I keep thinking it's like they're like describing the shit out of me right now. I'm legit 5'4", so yeah, I have the short one. I said it don't run from me, he reminded. You could not hope to outdistance me. He looked her up and down, her skin, and she was seeing a splendid amount of it. Or he was seeing a splendid. Oh, let me try that again. Her skin, and he was seeing a splendid amount of it, was smooth and unscarred, bearing no sign of disease. Her waist was slim, her belly was slightly swelled. He adorned, he adored on a wench, and although her hips were lush, he suspected she'd not yet borne bairn. The harsh light of day, oft unflattering to a wench, paid this one naught but tribute. She bit back a groan. He'd not felt so intensely desirous of a woman ever before in his life. It's cold. And I'm burning my leg up here. Oh my gosh. I know, right? It's horrible. No, I don't want to. All right. Stop looking at me like that, she snapped. His gaze collided with hers. She had eyes the color of a wild Scottish sea. They were clear evidence of a storm brewing in the icy blue depths. Why are you so prickly, English? Is it 'cause I'm a Scot? It's because you're overbearing, domineering, and pushing. I'm a man, he replied easily. If men are allowed to behave in such an atrocious fashion, how are women supposed to act? Appreciative. And among my clan, we like them demanding in bed, he added with a smile. When her gaze grew even colder, he said, You do not respond well to be just. Be easy, Gwen Cassidy. I seek but to lighten your fears. You need fear not less. I will care for you and despite your bad blood. Even in, even the English can learn, on occasion, he added, just to provoke her. She growled, actually growled in her throat, as if he had so irritated her that she'd like nothing more than to kick him. He found himself hoping she would. He was aching for an excuse to tussle with her and to take her soft body down beneath his. And then he'd make her growl, low in her throat, for an entirely different reason. A moan of desire that buried himself between her thighs. But, feeble minded though she might be, she knew better than not to provoke contact. He could see it in her storm filled eyes. Her lack of intelligence didn't seem to have precluded common sense. He drew a deep breath of fresh air and smiled. He was free of the cave, alive, and would soon be home. He would uncover the treachery, the traitors, and reward himself of the feisty Brighton. Life was rich, thought the Lord of McKelter. Chapter 4. Not a woman prone to violence, Gwen was taken aback by her desire to kick Tristan McKelter, not to slice or dissect him verbally, which would have been the mature thing to do, but to punch him, maybe even bite him the next time he touched her. Her mind went on instant, extended sabbatical, just looking at him. She'd never met a man so hopelessly chauvinistic. He provoked the worst in her, dragging her down to a level, a base, and a primitive of his own. She wanted to launch herself at him and pummel him. He was behaving as if she'd, because he'd found her atop him, he owned her. Scottish lords obviously hadn't changed much over the centuries. She hadn't missed his proclamation that he was authentic lord, rather. She'd chosen to ignore it. He'd seemed to expect a curtsy, or maidenly swoon. She would not pander to this conceit. It appeared that centuries of submission to the English hadn't taught this Scot one damn thing about submission. He was likely one of those stuffy aristocrats who was fighting to restore Scotland's independence so he could swagger about it in his kilt and regalia like a little king. He even preferred the archaic manner of speech affected some centuries back. And he was definitely a womanizer. Smooth talking, sexy, and entirely too touchy feely. Probably dumb as a box of rocks. However, because all that brawn couldn't possibly couch too much brain. I have to return to the inn now, she informed him. There's no need for you to seek shelter in a common cavern. You'll be generously housed in my demesne. I'll see to your needs. Possessively, he cupped his hand at the nape of her neck, tangling his fingers in her hair. I like the way you keep your hair. It is unusual, but I find it most, sensual. Bristling, she tossed her bangs out of her eyes. Let's get something straight, McKelter. I'm not going home with you. I'm not going to bed with you. And I'm not wasting one more moment of my time arguing with you. I promise not to mock you when you change your mind, Les. Oh, contrary to what you might think, arrogance does not work as an aphrodisiac on me. It was only a small lie. Arrogance alone didn't. But the particular arrogant man that was a walking lollipop. She was certain that latching her lips onto any part of him would satisfy her relentless oral cravings. She'd been fighting for 10 days, 7 hours, and 43 minutes. Not that she was counting. Aphrodisiac, he repeated slowly, brows furrowed. He was silent a moment, and then he said, Oh, Aphrodite Ignanicos. You mean a love potion? Sort of. How could he not know the word? She wondered, eyeing him warily. And why break it into Greek parts? Hope y'all are having fun with this. Because I know I am. When he grinned when he grinned cockily, she dropped her gaze and pretended a sudden fascination with her cuticles. Oh Lord. The man was too damn sexy for his own good, and standing way too close. He slid his hands into her hair and tugged gently, forcing her to look at him. His silver eyes glittered. Tell me you do not feel mating heat between us. Tell me you do not desire me, Queen Cassidy. His gaze dared her to lie, dismayed as she realized he could sense how much she wanted him, just as she could sense that he wanted to be all over her. So she did what handling insurance claims had taught her to do the best. Deny, deny, deny. I do not desire you, she mocked lightly. Yeah, right. Sexual tension between them nearly qualified as a fifth force of nature. He inclined his head, a dark eyebrow rose, and his gaze was amused, as if he were somehow privy to her internal dissenting opinion. One corner of his mouth lifted to a faint smile. When you finally speak the truth, it'll be so sweet, wait English. It will take it will make me hard as a stone in mere words upon your lips. She felt it imprudent to point out that he already was. When he'd buried his hands in her hair, he'd brushed that part of him against her. She was so shocked to realize that he was actually contemplating having impulsive sex with him, trying to decide what was the worst thing that could happen if she did as many people she knew did. Just hopped into bed with a stranger. God, he was so tempting. She wanted to experience passion when he looked at her the way that he was looking at her right now. She felt an epiphany might be a hot, slippery kiss away. But he was headstrong, too gorgeous for anyone's peace of mind, a wildly unpredictable variable in a risky equation. and she knew that there would those could do what those could do, create chaos. The nervous flutter in her stomach, the desire she felt to have, was too novel a sensation for her to act upon it without careful consideration. Although she wanted to change her life and was determined to lose her virginity, she was beginning to realize that it wasn't easy to change one's ways as she thought it would be. Thinking about having sex with a virtual stranger was a whole lot different than actually plunging right into the heat of the nakedness and rawness of it, especially when the virtual stranger was so much of a man. A little odd and a little overwhelming, her newfound feelings of desire scared her. The intensity of her body's reaction to him scared her as well. Perhaps she could do it with him on the last day of her trip, she mused. He was certainly willing. She could have what she knew would be heart pounding sex, then fly back home and never have to see him again. She brought condoms before leaving the States, and they were tucked safely in her pack. Sheesh! What madness contagious? Was madness contagious? What on earth was she thinking? A brisk shake of her head restored her sanity. Come, he said. I'd like to, but you're way too dangerous, she thought with a sigh. Since he was heading down the hill in a general direction of the inn, she followed. You don't have to hold my hand, she protested. I'm not going to run off. His eyes crinkled at the silent amusement that he had released her. I enjoyed holding your I enjoyed holding your hand, but you may walk beside me, he informed her. I wouldn't walk anywhere else, she muttered, and behind would feed his ego, although she'd get to watch his incredible body unobserved. In front, she'd be miserable, feeling his gaze on her. Beside him was the only tolerable place. Aw, that's kind of cute. Kind of how I feel about life, too. I really like this book. This is the first book that I've read since sixth grade, and I'm almost 40. So, read as much as you can while you can. We need these things. He took long strides, his natural pace a lope for her, but she refused to complain. The faster he walked, the more quickly she would surround herself in the safety of the teeming village. She'd never dreamed she'd be so grateful to see a busload of senior citizens in her life. Busy plotting her polite but hasty retreat from his presence, she didn't realize he'd stopped until he was quite some distance behind her. She turned and gestured impatiently, but his eyes were on the village below. Come on, she shouted. He hadn't appeared to hear her. She called for him again, waving her arms to get his attention, but he remained motionless, his gaze locked on the view. Fine, she decided. This is a great time to leave. I have a head start. She broke into a sprint down the sloping hillside, stretching her legs as if running for her very life. She suddenly felt silly. If the man had truly planned to harm her, he would have done so long before now. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving something incredibly dangerous behind her on the hillside. Far more than a simple man, it was wiser that she did so now. She ran for several seconds before the missile blasted her from behind. She stumbled and landed on her stomach in a springy patch of purple vetch trapped beneath his body. He stretched her hands above her head and pressed her against the ground. Oh my. I said don't run from me, he gritted out. Which word did you have difficulty with? Well, you stopped moving, Gwen argued. I called for you, and ouch, damn it. Now I hurt all over. When he didn't respond, only raised his body slightly off of her so she could breathe, she became aware of a subtle change in him. His heart was thundering against her back. His breathing was shallow and his hands were trembling atop hers. What what's wrong? She asked faintly. What horror can make such strong hands tremble? He pointed to a car disappearing down the winding road beneath them. What in the name of all that is holy is that? Gwen squinted. It looked like a VW, but I can't tell from the distance. The sun's in my eyes. A what? Volkswagen. A what wagon? Volkswagen, a car. The man going deaf. And that. His cheek brushed her temple as she turned her head to gaze where he had pointed. What? She blinked owlishly. He appeared to be pointing at the inn. The inn? Nay, that bright thing with the colour, such as I have never seen. And what are all those leafless trees? Whatever happened to the trees? And why are there tied cords between them? Think you will they run away, not tethered? Never have I seen oaks so ashamed. Gwen's eyed the neon sign above the inn and the telephone poles in the wary silence. Well, lass, he took several slow, deep breaths, then said unsteadily, none of this was here before. I have been naught of such oddities. It looks as if half the clans in Scotland have settled about the Brody's Loch, and I'm quite certain he wouldn't approve of all of this. He's a most private man. He rolled off of her and flipped her over, and then pulled her up so she was on her knees facing him. He cupped her shoulders and shook her. What is a car? What is the purpose of it? Oh, for heaven's sake, you know what a car is. Stop pretending. You've been pretty convincing of this archaic lord, but don't play any more games with me. Gwen glared at him, but beneath her anger, he was frightening her. He had the most bewildered expression on his face, and she thought she glimpsed a hint of fear in his brilliant eyes. What is a car? He repeated softly. Gwen began to make a caustic comment, then hesitated. Perhaps he was sick. Perhaps this situation was infinitely more dangerous than she thought. It's a machine powered by oh, battery and gas? She abruptly decided to humor him, giving him the short answer. Well, people travel in them. Soundlessly, his lips formed the words battery and gas, and he was still a moment then. English. Gwen, she corrected. Are you truly English? No, I'm American. American? I see. Well, truly, but when? What? These questions were starting to scare her. In what century do I find myself? The breath locked in her throat. She massaged her temples, assailed by a sudden headache. COVID. Yay. It figured that man who dripped such raw sex appeal had to be fatally flawed. She had no idea what to say to him. How did one answer such a question? Dare she get up and simply walk away, or would he tackle her again? I said, "What century is this?" he repeated evenly. "The 21st," she said, closing her eyes. Was he playing a game? The bold block letters of a newspaper headline blossomed in against the insides of her eyelids, crowding out all rational thought. Dropout daughter of world-renowned physicist abducted by escaped mental patient. Subtitled, "She would have listened to her parents and stayed in the lab." She should have. She should have listened to her parents and stayed in the lab. He fell silent, and when she opened her eyes, he was scanning the village below, the boats on the lock, the buildings, the cars, the bright lights and signs, the bicyclists on the streets. He cocked his head, listening to the blat of horns honking, the buzz of motorbikes, and some soft from us sorry, and from some cafe, the rhythmic bass of rock and roll. He rubbed his jaw, his gaze wary. After some time he nodded, as if he'd resolved an internal debate he'd been having. "Christ," he half whispered, aristocratic nostrils flaring like a cornered animal. "I haven't lost a mere moon. I've lost centuries." A mere moon? Centuries? Gwen pinched her lower lip between her finger and thumb, riveted. When he looked back at her, eyed her shirt, her pack, her hair, her shorts, and finally her hiking boots, he tugged her foot out from beneath her, held it in his hands and studied it for a long moment before raising his eyes to hers again. His dark brows dipped. "You name your stockings. You name your stockings." "What?" He ran his fingers over the words polo, stitched on the thick woolen cuff of her sock. Then his gaze fixed on the small tab of her hiking boots. "Timberland." Before he could form a reply, he said, "Give me your pack." Gwen sighed and started to hand it to him, then unzipped the main pouch first, not in the mood to get into a discussion about zippers. Considering the one on her shorts, if he truly didn't know how they worked, she wasn't in a hurry to teach him. Women should sew padlocks on their zippers with him around. If you're just now joining me, I am reading a romance novel. He took the pack and dumped the contents on the ground. When her cell phone fell out, she was momentarily furious with herself for forgetting it, until she had recalled that it wouldn't work in Scotland anyways. As he withdrew it from the jumble of her belongings, she realized it wouldn't work ever again. The plastic casing had been crushed in one of her many falls, and it broke into pieces in his hands. He eyed the tiny technology inside with such fascination. He sorted through her cosmetics, pried open a compact, and regarded himself in the small mirror. Her protein bars were tossed aside, along with the box of condoms, thanks heavens. And then he spied her toothbrush. His bewildering gaze swept from her long, thick hair to the tiny brush and back to her hair again. One brow arched in an expression of doubt. He picked up the latest issue of Cosmopolitan, eyed the picture of the half-clad model on the cover, and then fanned rapidly through it. Gawking at the brilliant colored pictures, he ran his fingers over the pages as if stunned. "And Sylvan thinks his illuminated tombs are lovely," he muttered. When he started sorting through her brightly colored panties, He'd had enough. She closed her fist over the lime silk thong that he was currently examining, and firmly shook his head. Thank you for the hearts. But when he looked at her, she realized that for the first time since they'd met, seduction was not on his mind. Her desire to flee was abruptly vanished by the look of anguish on his face, and she wasn't so certain anymore that he was playing with her. If he was a consummate actor. Plucking the magazine from his hands, she pointed out the date in the corner. His eyes widened even further. What century did you think it was? She asked, disgusted with herself for being a sucker for such a gorgeous man. He evidenced no intellect and had no redeeming qualities, yet drew her like a fluttering moth to a flame, and so that she made ashes of her wings. Hey, John! I am reading a book. Kiss of the Highlander? I haven't read a book since sixth grade. This is kind of fun. If you're just now joining me, this is a romance novel, so 18 plus only, please. Thank you. Okay. The 16th. The 16th, he replied hourly. He sounded so distraught that she touched him, brushing her fingers against his chiseled jaw, lingering longer than. Wait, I feel like I skipped a page. These pages are like ridiculous. 55, 56. Okay, I guess. All right, let's try that again. He sounded so distraught that she touched him, brushing her fingers against his chiseled jaw, lingering longer than was wise. McKelter, you need help, she soothed, and we'll find you help. He closed his hand over hers, turning his head, and kissed her palm. My thanks. I am pleased you come so swiftly to my aid. She withdrew her hand quickly. Come with me to the village, and I'll get you to a doctor. You probably fell and have a concussion, Gwen said, hoping it was true. The alternative was that he had been wandering around, God only knows how long, thinking he was some medieval lord, and that he just couldn't reconcile the powerful, arrogant man with a delusional, paranoid, schizophrenic behavior. She didn't want him to be sick. She wanted him to be just as he appeared to be, competent and strong and healthy. It seemed impossible that a mental case would be so commandingly regal. Nay, he said softly, his gaze drifting to the date on the magazine again. We do not go to your village, about but to Bone Side, he said finally. And and we haven't much time. It will be a hard journey, but I will tend to you gently when we arrive. I shall see you handsomely rewarded for your assistance. Oh God. He meant to take her to his castle. He really was over the top. I'm not going into those stones with you, she said as calmly as she could under the circumstances. Let me take you to a doctor. Trust me. Trust me, he said, as he pulled her. Wait, trust me, he said, as he pulled her to his, to her feet beside him. I need you, Gwen. I need your help. And I'm trying to give it to you. But you do not understand. I know you're sick. He shook his dark head, and in the late afternoon light his silvery eyes were clear, level, and intelligent. No crazed glimmering lurked there, only concern and determination. Nay, I am well, and in no way touched as you are thinking. You simply have to see for yourself. I hope you're enjoying it. My sorry, like, version of Scottish man voice. I don't know. I'm not coming with you, she said firmly. I have other things to do. You must forego them. The culture takes precedence, and in time you'll understand. Now, I ask you the last time, do you come with me in your own free will? Not a chance in hell, barbarian. When he wrapped his hand around her wrist, she realized that while they were arguing, he'd removed a chain of sorts from somewhere on his body. When he closed the metal links around her wrist and bound her to him, she opened her mouth to scream, but he clamped a powerful hand over her mouth. Then you come with me of my will alone. So be it. Thank you, John. I'm trying. I'm trying to do like this Scottish, like deep man voice, and I don't have it. 111, make a wish. Yay! I'm trying. At least I'm not like having muscle spasms in my lung anymore. That was like rough for a minute. I mean, they come and go still. I will be so happy when all of this is over. I've had COVID for like a ridiculous amount of time, and it's not even so much the effect of it, it's the aftermath and the side effects. Nearly 500 years. Oh, I'm sorry. Chapter 5. Nearly 500 years, Justin brooded. How could that be? He felt as if only yestreen he'd gone riding in the heather filled highland meadows of his home. His mind reeled from shock, and try though he might to deny it, he knew it was true. He knew it with a Gnostic bone deep knowing that was unquestionable. Her time felt different. A natural rhythm to the elements was frenetic, fractured. Her world was not a healthy one. Centuries had passed and he had no idea how it had happened. Probing his memory had yielded no additional facts. 5 centuries of slumber seemed to have muted his memory, dimmed the events that had occurred just prior to his abduction. All he knew was that he had been lured into some sort of an ambush in which a number of people had participated. There had been armed men, there had been chanting, and fragrant smoke which reeked of witchcraft or druidry. He'd obviously been drugged, but then what? Enchanted by a deep spell? As if and if he'd been spelled, by whom? Still more important, why? The why of it would tell him of his entire clan had been targeted. An icy finger of dread brushed his spine as he considered the possibility that they'd been attacked for the lore they protected. Had someone finally believed the rumors and come seeking proof? The Celter males were druids, as their ancestors had been for millennia. But what few knew was that they were not simple druids, struggling with mostly incomplete lore since the loss of so much of it within the fateful war millennia ago. The Celters possessed all the lore, and they were sole guardians of the standing stones. If after he'd been abducted, his father, Sylvan, had been killed by his abductors, the sacred lore would be lost forever, and the knowledge they protected, to be used only when the world had dire need, vanquished utterly. He glanced at Gwen. If he hadn't awake, if she hadn't awakened him, He might as well slumbered for an eternity. He murmured a silent prayer of thanks. Thank you, John. I hope so too, because I'll tell you what, it's rough. It's like the aftermath is takes forever to cure from. He glanced at Gwen. If oh, whoops. Pondering his situation, he realized that for now the how and why of his abduction were irrelevant. He would find no answers in her time. What mattered was action. He had been blessed enough to have been awakened and have both the chance and the power to correct things. Yet to do so, he must be at Von Druckade by midnight on Mabon. He glanced at her again, and she refused to look at him. Dusk had so long since fallen, and they made good time, putting many miles between them and the horrifying, noisy village. In the moonlight, her smooth skin shimmered with a warm richness of pearl. He indulged himself envisioning her nude, which wasn't hard to do when she wore so little. She was all woman and brought out the most primitive man in him, a fierce need to possess and mate. Her nipples were clearly visible beneath her thin shirt, and he ached to suckle them in his mouth. She was so fiery a wee lass, with a spine of steel and curves that would lure even the devout priest of Nevin's gaze. Nevin's gaze, yeah. He'd gotten hard the moment that he opened his eyes and looked at her, and he had been uncomfortably erect since. One flirtatious glance from her would return him to a painful state, and he didn't worry overmuch that she might cast him such a look. She hadn't spoken to him in hours, not since he refused for the 100th time to release her, not since he told her he would toss her over his shoulder and carry her if he had to. I mean, if you're gonna, you're gonna, right? It intrigued him that she neither screamed nor fainted, nor pleaded for release. His first impression of her had not been entirely accurate, although it was difficult to discern what, with her strange manner of speaking, did possess a dash of intelligence. She demonstrated fine reasoning abilities while trying to talk him out of taking her along, and when she realized there was no possibility of him relenting, she treated him as if he simply didn't exist. Bravo, Gwen, he thought. Cassidy is Irish for clever. Gwendolen means goddess of the moon. Quite a fascinating lass you're turning out to be. Whereas initially he thought of her as an orphan or a survivor of a clan massacre, a woman willing to barter her body to secure a protector, thus explaining her clothing and demeanor, it had since occurred to him that she might simply be typical of her time. Mayhap in 5 centuries women had changed this much, become tenaciously independent. Then why, he wondered, did he sense a silent sadness, a brush of vulnerability in her that beguiled her bravado? He knew she thought that he'd dragged her off because he desired her, and would that and would that it were and would that it were that and would that it were that simple. There was no denying that he found her mesmerizing, as was impatient to bed her. But things were suddenly much more complicated. Once he discovered he was stranded in the future, he realized he needed her. When they arrived at the stones, if the worst was true and his castle was gone, there was a ritual that he must perform. His conscience be damned. There was a possibility the ritual would go wrong, and if that happened, he needed Gwen Cassidy standing by his side. She was growing weary, but felt a pang of regret for causing her and he felt a pang of regret for causing her distress. When she stumbled over a tree root and fell against him, only to hiss and jerk away, he softened. He would give her this one night, for after tomorrow there would be no stopping. She nearly fell where she stood, and he cupped one arm behind her shoulders and the other behind her knees, deposited her on a mossy trunk of an enormous tree that had fallen to the floor of the forest, perched upon the massive trunk, and with her feet dangling several inches above the ground, she looked wee and delicate. Warrior hearts did not always come in warrior strong bodies, and although he could hike 3 days without rest or food, she would not fare well in such conditions. I want to highlight that. Warrior hearts did not always come in warrior strong bodies. Probably shouldn't write in books, but either way. He boosted himself up onto the trunk beside her. Yeah, isn't that cool? I like that too. I mean, so much that I marked the book. Like, that's how much I like that sentence. Thank you. Gwen, he said gently. There was no response. Gwen, I truly will not harm you, he said. You already have, she retorted. Oh, you're speaking to me again. I'm chained to you. I had planned to never speak to you again, but I've decided that I don't feel like making things easy for you. So I'm going to tell you incessantly and in vivid detail precisely how miserable I am. I'm going to stuff your ears with my shrill complaints. I'm going to make you wish you lost your hearing when you were born. He laughed. This was a scornful English again. This was his scornful English again. You are free to torment me at every opportunity. I regret causing you discomfort, but I must. I have no choice. She arched one brow and regarded him with disdain. Let me be certain I understand this situation. You think that you are from the 16th century? What year exactly? 1518. And in 1518 you lived somewhere near here? Aye. And that you were a lord? Aye. And how is it that you ended up sleeping in a cave in the 21st century? That is what I must discover. McAllister, it is impossible. You seem relatively sane to me, but this delusion excluded, a bit chauvinistic, but not too abnormal. This is no way in a man. There is no way a man can fall asleep and wake up nearly 5 centuries later. Psychologically, it's impossible. I've heard of Rip Van Winkle and Sleeping Beauty, but those are fairy tales. I doubt the fairy had aught to do with it. I suspect a gypsies or witchcraft, he confided. Oh, now that's infinitely reassuring, she said, too sweetly. Thank you for clarifying that. Do you mock me? Do you believe in fairies? She countered. Fairy is mere another name for the Tuatha De Dun. Blah. Tuatha De Danann. And yet, and it is. They exist, although they keep their distance from mortal man. We Scots have always known that. You have lived a sheltered life, have you not? When she closed her eyes, she smiled. She was so naive. She opened her eyes, favored him with a patronizing smile, and changed the subject, as if not want to press his fragile mind too damn hard. He bit his lip to prevent the desires. Dis- he bit his lip to prevent a derisive snort. At least she was talking to him again. Why are you going to Ben Drocade, and why do you insist on taking me with you? He weighed what he might safely tell her without driving her away. I must go to the castle stone, or go to the stones, because that's where my castle is. You know the parts I'm marking? I said the parts that I was marking. Thank you very kindly. Is or was. If you expect to convince me that you're truly from the 16th century, you're going to have to do a little better with the verb tenses. He glanced at her these words, I swear, reprovingly. Well, Squin, I pray stand still. It must be so, for if they it must be so, for if they arrived at the stones and there was no sign of his castle, his situation would be dire indeed. So you're hoping to visit your descendants, assuming, of course, that I'm playing along with this absurd game, she added. Nay, not unless what? Nay, not unless his father, at 62, had somehow managed to breathe another burn under Justine had been abducted. After Justine had been abducted, which was highly unlikely, since Sylvan had not touched a woman since Justine's mother had died. As far as knew, what he was hoping for was some of the items of the castle, but he couldn't tell her any of that. There must be a big fire. You hear the sirens in the background? But he couldn't tell her any of that. He couldn't risk scaring her off when he needed her so desperately. He needn't have bothered searching for a suitably evasive reply, because when he hesitated too long for her liking, she simply forged ahead with another question. Why do you need me? I do not know your century, and the terrain between here and my home may have changed. He offered. Sorry, changing the page here. John, it's all your fault. If you're just now joining me, I'm reading a romance novel called Kiss the Highlander, and I'm on page 64. Incomplete truth smoothly. I need a guide who has knowledge of this century's ways. I may need to pass through your villages, and there would be dangers, and would not perceive until it was too late. That sounded rather convincing, he thought. She was regarding him with blatant skepticism. Gwen, I know you think that I've lost my memory from an ill, but I'm having favored imaginings. I'm having favored imaginings, but consider this. What if you are wrong? What if I'm telling the truth? Have I harmed you, other than making you come across with me? Have I injured you in any way? No, she conceded grudgingly. Look at me, Glenn. He cupped her face with his hands, so she had to look directly into his eyes. The chain rattled between their wrists. Do you surely believe that I mean you ill will? She blew a strand of hair out her face with a soft puff of breath. I'm chained to you. That worries me. He took a calculated risk. With an impatient movement, he released the links, counting on the mating heat between them to keep her from outright fleeing. Fine, you're free. I misjudged you. I believe that you were a kind and compassionate woman, not a faint hearted lass who cannot abide anything that she does not immediately understand. I am not faint hearted. And if it in fact doesn't adhere to your perception of how things should be, then it cannot be. He gave a decisive snort. What a narrow version of the world you have. What a narrow vision of the world you have. Oh! Gwen scowled, scooting away from him on the fallen tree trunk. She swung one leg across it, straddling the massive trunk, and sat facing him. How dare you try to make me feel bad for not believing your story? And I assure you, I do not have a narrow view of the world. I'm probably one of the few people who doesn't. You might be astounded by how broad and well informed my vision of the world actually is. She massaged the skin on her wrist, glaring at him. What a contradiction you are, he said softly. At moments I see courage in you, then at others I see naught but the cowardice. Tell me, are you always at odds with yourself? A hand flew to her throat, and her eyes widened. He'd struck something sensitive. Ruthlessly he perused it. Would it be so much to ask that you give it a bit of your precious time to help someone in need, the way they wish to be helped rather than the way that you think they should be helped? Now I can't remember who's talking now. All right. You're making it sound like everything is my fault. You're making it sound like I'm the one who's crazy. What if I say it's true and I vow it to you? Do you seem most unreasonable with me? He said calmly. Has it occurred to you that I found your world, without any knowledge of the ancients, with limbless, leafless trees, and sorry, and clothing with formal appellations, as unnatural as you find my story? Doubt? He could see it on her expressive face. Her stormy eyes widened further, and he glimpsed at the mysterious flash of vulnerability beneath her tough exterior. He disliked provoking her, but she didn't know what was at stake, and he couldn't possibly tell her. He didn't have time to go out into her world and seek another person. Besides, he hadn't wished any he didn't wish any other person. He wanted her. She discovered him. She'd awakened him. And with his conviction that she was supposed to be involved in helping him correct things increased with each passing hour. There are no coincidences in this world, Justin, his father had said. You must see with the eagle's eye. You must detach, lift above a conundrum, and map the terrain. And map the terrain of it. Everything happens for a reason. If you but discern the pattern. She massaged her temples again, scowling at him. You're giving me a headache. After a moment, she blew out a resigned breath, fluffing her bangs from her eyes. Okay, I give up. Why don't you tell me about yourself? I mean, who you think you are. A rather begrudging invitation, but he would work with what he would get. He hadn't realized how tense he had been, awaiting her response, until his muscles smoothed beneath his skin. I have told you that I am the lord of my clan, despite the fact that my father, Sylvan, still lives. He refuses to be lord any more, and that threescore and two I has scarce to blame him. 'Tis a long time to bear such a responsibility. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. I had a brother, Diegus, but he died recently. He didn't mention that his betrothed had been killed while accompanying Diegus back to the castle Kelter for the wedding. The less said about any of his betrothed to another woman, the better. He was touchy about the entire subject. How? She asked gently. He was returning from the Elliots' estate when he was killed in a clan battle that wasn't even our own, but between the Campbell and the Montgomery. Most likely, he saw the Montgomery was severely outnumbered and tried to make a difference. That's a second siren. There's got to be a barn fire. I live in the country. I live in North Carolina, Statesville to be exact, and there's a lot of farm around here. And I hope whoever is involved in this now second siren is okay. We don't ever hear those out here unless there's a big fire. It's calling all the counties around, I guess. I don't know how it works. I'm so sorry, she said softly. He opened his eyes to find compassion shimmering in her gaze, and it warmed him. When he lowered himself from a massive trunk of fallen tree and pulled her leg over the trunk so she faced him, she didn't resist. With him standing on the ground and her perched upon the trunk, they were at equal eye level, and it seemed to make her feel more comfortable. Diegus was like that, he told her with a mixture of sorrows and pride. He was never one to fight others' battles. He was ever one to fight others' battles. He took a sword through the heart, and one bitter morn I woke up to the sight of my brother, trusted across the back of a horse, being escorted home by the captain of the Elliot Guard, and grief rips at my heart, brother of mine. I failed both you and Dad. Her brows puckered, mirroring his sorrows. Your mother? She asked gently. My father was widowed. She died on childbirth when I was 15. Neither she nor the babe survived. He has not remarried. He vows there's only one true love for him. Tristan smiled. His dad's sentiment was one he understood. His parents' match had been made in heaven. He a druid and she a daughter of the eccentric inventor who scoffed at propriety and educated his daughter better than most sons. Hey, Les. You're reading romance novels. Unfortunately, educated issues were hardly in abundance in the Highlands, nor anywhere else for that matter. Sylvan had been lucky indeed. Driston had longed for such a match himself, but time had wore him down, and he'd given up hope for finding such a woman. Are you married? Oh, whoops, wrong person. Are you married? Driston shook his head. Nay, I would have tried to kiss you were I betrothed or wed. I would not have tried to kiss you were I betrothed or wed. Well, score 1 point for men in general, she said dryly. Aren't you rather old never to have been married? Usually, when a man hasn't been married by your age, there's something wrong with them, she provoked. I've been betrothed, he protested indignantly, not about to tell her the number of times. It wasn't a fine selling point, or it wasn't a fine selling point, and she was closer to the truth than he would have liked. There was indeed something wrong with him. Once women spend a bit of time with him, they packed up their bags and left. It was enough to make a man feel uncertain of his charms. He could see that he was about to press the issue, so he said hastily, hoping it would end the discussion of the subject. She died before the wedding. Gwen winced. I'm so sorry. There were a few silent moments between them. She said, Do you want to get married? He arched a teasing brow. Are you offering for me, lassie? He purred. If only she would. He'd like as not snatch her up and marry her before she could change her mind. He found himself more intrigued by her than he had ever been with any of his other betrothed. She flushed. Of course not. I'm merely curious. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of man you are. I I wish to wed and have burn. I simply need the good woman, he said, flashing his most charming grin. Hugh Bucket, how are you? I'm like trying to lean back so I can see. Hope you're enjoying it. In my silly voice. She wasn't unaffected by it. He saw her eyes widen slightly in response, and she seemed to forget the question she had been about to ask. He breathed a silent thank you to the gods who'd gifted him a handsome face and white teeth. And what would a man and what would a man like you consider a good woman? She said after a moment. Wait, she raised a hand when he would have spoken. Let me guess. Obedient, adoring, definitely not too bright, she mocked. Oh, and she'd have to be just the most gorgeous woman around, wouldn't she? He cocked his head, meeting her gaze levelly. Nay, my idea of a good woman would be one I love to look at, not because I found her lovely, but because her unique characteristics spoke to me. He brushed the corner of her mouth with his fingers. Mayhaps she would have a dimple on the side of her mouth when she smiled. Mayhaps she would have a witch mark. He slid his hand up to the small mole on her right cheekbone. High upon one cheek, mayhaps she would have a stormy eyes. High upon one cheek, mayhaps she would have stormy eyes that reminded me of the sea I so love. But there are other characteristics far more important than her appearance. My woman would have to be one curious of the world and like to learn. She she wouldn't want to, she would want children and love them no matter what. She would have a fearless heart, courage, and compassionate. He spoke from the heart, his voice deepening with passion. He freed what had been bottled up inside of him and told her exactly what he wanted. She would be one who would talk with me into the wee hours and about anything and everything, who would savor all the tempers of the Highlands, who would treasure family, a woman who could find beauty in the world, in me, and in the world we could make together. She would be My honored companion, adored lover, and cherished wife. Gwen drew a deep breath. The skeptical look in her eyes faded. She shifted uncomfortably, glanced away from him, and was silent for a time. He didn't interrupt, curious to see how she would respond to his honest declaration. He smiled wryly when she cleared her throat and glibly changed the subject. Well, if you're from the 16th century Highlands, why don't you speak Gaelic? Give nothing away, lass, he thought. Who or what hurt you is what makes you so conceal your feelings? Gaelic. You wish Gaelic? With a wolfish smile. He told her exactly what he wanted to do to her once he removed her clothing, first in Gaelic, then in Latin, and finally in a language that had not been spoken for centuries, not even in his time. It made him hard saying the words. Ah, that could be gibberish, she snapped, but she shivered as if she sensed the intent behind the words. Then why do you test me? He asked quietly. I need something to prove it. I can't just go on blind faith. Nay, he agreed. You do not seem to be the woman who could. Well, you had proof, she countered, then added hastily. Of course, pretending that you could claim is true. You saw cars, the village, my phone, my clothing. He gestured at his attire, his sword, and shrugged. Well, that could be a costume. What what would you consider sufficient proof? She folded her arms across her chest. I don't know, she admitted. I can prove it to you at the Stones. Beyond any doubt, I could prove it to you there. How? He shook his head. You must come and see. You think your ancestors might have some record of you, a portrait or something? She guessed. Gwen, you must decide whether I am mad or I am telling the truth. I cannot prove it to you until we reach our destination. Once we reach Brondrocade, you will still do, and if you still do not believe me, there at the stones, when I have done what I can do to offer you proof, I will ask nothing more of you. What have you to lose, Gwen Cassidy? Is your life so demanding that full that you cannot spare a man and need a few days of your time? He'd won. He could see it in her eyes. And yeah, he could see it in her eyes. She looked at him in silence for a long time. He met her gaze steadily, waiting. Finally, she gave a tight nod. I will make sure that you get to your stones safely, but that doesn't mean for a minute that I believe you. I'm curious to see what proof you can offer me of that incredible story, and if that incredible story is true. Because if it is, she trailed off and shook her head. Suffice it to say, such proof would be worth hiking across the highlands to see. But the moment you show me whatever it is you have to show me, and if I still believe you, I'm done with you. Okay? Okay. And the word meant nothing to him in any language. Do you agree to our deal? She clarified. A deal that you agree to honor fully, she stressed. Aye, the moment I show you the proof, if you still do not believe, you will be free of me, and you must promise to stay with me until you actually see the proof. Deep inside, Dresden winced, loathing the carefully phrased equivocation. I accept, but you will not chain me, and I must eat. And right now I am going for a short walk in the woods. And if you follow me, I will make it very, very, very unhappy. She hopped down from the fallen tree trunk and skirted around him, giving him wide berth. As you wish, Gwincassi. She stooped and reached for her pack, but he moved swiftly and wrapped his hand around her waist. No, if you go, it stays with me. I need a few things, she hissed. You may, you may take one item with you, he said, reluctant to interfere if she had womanly needs. Perhaps it was her time of the moon. Angrily, she dug into the pack and withdrew two items, a bar of something in a bag. Definitely, she had stuck the bar in the bag and said, See, it's only one thing now. She turned abruptly and headed for the woods. I'm a sorry lass, he whispered when he was certain she was out of hearing, hearing range. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I don't know. You're not like saying anything, so I'm not sure. He had no choice but to make her his unwitting victim. Larger issues of his home life depended on it. Gwen hurriedly used the facilities, anxiously scanning the forest around her, but it didn't appear that he had followed her. Still, she didn't trust a thing about her current situation. After relieving herself, she devoured the protein bar she had grabbed. She rummaged through the cosmetics bag, flossed, and then dabbed a touch of toothpaste to her finger. The taste of mint boosted her flagging spirits. A swipe of the medicated pad over her nose, cheeks, and forehead nearly made her swoon with pleasure. Yeah, there must be a big fire. I really hope everybody's okay with whatever it is. We have a lot of factories around here too that have, within the past few years, exploded. And we had, I think it's what is that? When they come and they quarantine the area and stuff. Yeah, fun stuff. Not. All right, we're getting there. This is a little exhaustive for a moment. And I apologize for the background noise. Some stuff we have no control over. I just hope everybody's okay. Sweaty and exhausted, she felt more alive than ever. She was beginning to fear for her own sanity, because there was a part of her that wanted to believe him, wanted desperately to experience something outside of her everything can be explained by science existence. She wanted to believe in magic, in men who made her feel hot and weak kneed, and in crazy things like spells. Nature or nurture, what was the determining factor? She had been obsessing over that question lately. She knew what nurture had done to her. At 25, she had a serious intimacy problem, aching for a thing that she couldn't name, and terrified of it at the same time. But what of her nature? Was she truly brilliant and cold like her parents? She recalled all too well the time she had been foolish enough to ask her father what love was. Love is an illusion clung by the fiscally challenged, Gwen. It makes them feel life might be worth living. Choose your mate by IQ, ambition, and resources. Better yet, let us choose him for you. Already I have several suitable matches in mind. Before she indulged in her great fit of rebellion, she had dutifully dated a few of her father's choices. Dry, intellectual men that regarded her more often than not through eyes red rimmed with constant peering into a microscope or textbook, with little interest in her as a person, and great interest of what her formidable parents might do for their careers. There had been no passionate declarations of undying love, only fervent assurances that they would make a brilliant team. Gwendolyn Cassidy, the sheltered daughter of famous scientists who had elevated themselves from stark poverty as children to esteemed positions at Los Alamos National Laboratory, doing top secret quantum research for the Department of Defense, and that had nearly impossible time getting a date outside of the cliquish scientific community in which she had been raised. At college, it had been even worse. Men had dated her for three reasons: one, to get in good with her parents, to see if she had any theories worth stealing, and last but not least, with the prestige of dating the prodigy. Those few had been attracted by her other endowments, translated generous cups, hadn't lingered long after the learning of who she was or what courses she was acing while they were hardly managing to skate by. She'd been frighteningly cynical by 21. She'd dropped out of the doctorate program by 23, carving an irrevocable schism between herself and her parents. Lonely as hell by 25, a veritable island. 2 years ago, she thought changing jobs, taking a nice, normal, average job with a nice, normal, average people who weren't scientists would fix her problems. She tried so hard to fit in and build a new life for herself, but she finally realized it wasn't her career choices that was the problem. Although she told herself that she'd come to Scotland to shuck her virginity, the small deception. You're enjoying it very much? I'm glad. I'm trying to make sure. I have to like look behind to see if there's any messages. Sorry. How she concealed her deeper and much more fragile motives. The problem was Gwen Cassidy didn't know if she had a heart. When Justin had spoken so passionately about what he was looking for in a woman, she had nearly flung herself at him, madman or no. Family, talking quiet pleasures into the simple lush beauty of the Highlands, having children who would be loved, fidelity, bonding, and a man who wouldn't kiss another woman if he were wed. She sensed that Tristan was a bit of an island himself. Oh, she knew why she really came to Scotland. She needed to know if love really was an illusion. She was desperate to change, to find something to shake her up and to make her feel. Well, this certainly qualified. If she wanted to become a new person, what better way than to start her to force herself to completely suspend disbelief, throw caution to the wind, to toss aside all that had been raised to believe and plunge into life messy as it was. To rescind control over what was happening around her and entrust that control to a madman. Raised in an environment where intellect was prioritized above all else, here was her chance to act impulsively on gut instinct with a gorgeous madman at that. It would be good for her. Who knew what might come of it? She would feel perfectly she could feel a perfectly vicious cigarette craving coming on. Y'all having a good night? You gotta love my internet. Come on. You know you want to come back alive. Okay. It's never ending. I'm gonna end up catching my blanket on fire. Oh my god. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Alright. I got a couple of drinks here. I'm trying. If you're just now joining us, I'm reading a romance novel. Violating her privacy utterly, he had rummaged through her pack and created a paltry bed by strewing her previously clean clothing on the ground. A recent acquisition, a vibrantly crimson thong adorned with black velvet silhouettes of romping kittens, poked out from between a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans. She spent a moment calculating the odds that he would pull out the only thong that she had brought but never worn, the thong she planned to wear when she lost her virginity. Inconceivable, she glared suspiciously at him. Certain he displayed her panties on purpose, but if so, he was the picture of innocence. I cannot procure food for you to this night, he apologized, but we'll eat in the morning. For now you must sleep. She said nothing, merely cast an irritable glance at her clothes strewn across twigs, leaves, and dirt. Further irritating her was he was standing at the perimeter of the light cast by the flames, making it difficult to see him clearly. But he didn't miss that lazily sensual lion-like toss of his head, that sent his silky dark hair falling over his shoulders. It screamed, "Come hither," and pissed her off even more. He met her glare with a provocative smile and gestured towards her clothing. "I made you a pallet upon which to sleep. In my time I would have spread a plaid for you, but I also would warm with you the heat of my naked body. Shall I remove my plaid?" "No need to bother," she sputtered hastily. "My clothes are just fine. Wonderful, really." Despite the abysmal lowlands of her emotions and feverish highlands of her hormones, she was bone-weary and desperate for a plateau of sleep. She'd got even more exercise today than she got in a month at home. The small pile of her clothing near the fire suddenly seemed as inviting as a down bed. "What about you?" she asked, reluctant to sleep if he was going to be awake. "Although you did not believe me, I slept for a very long time, and I find it most reluctant to close my eyes again. I shall stand watch." She regarded him warily and didn't move. I would be pleased to give you something to help you relax." Her brows furrowed. "Like what? A drug or something?" she said indignantly. "I have been told the calming effect of my hands. I would rub your back and caress your hair until you drifted peacefully." "I don't think so," she said icily. A quick white flash of teeth was the only indication she had that he was amused. "Then I bid you lie down before we fall down. We must cover a great deal of ground tomorrow. Although I could carry you, I sense you would not appreciate it." "You're damn right, McCalter," she muttered, as she relented and dropped to the ground near the fire. She burned and she bundled her sorry. She bundled her button down into a pillow of sorts and stuffed it under her head. "Are you warm enough?" He asked softly out of the darkness. I am downright toasty. And in truth, she shivered for only a short time before inching closer to the fire and falling into a deep and dreamless oblivion. Driston watched Gwen Cassidy sleep, her hair streaked with oh, her blonde hair streaked with darker and lighter highlights shimmered in the firelight. Her skin was smooth, her lips lush and pink, the lower one quite a bit fuller than the top, kissably full. Above almond-shaped eyes, her dark blonde brows arched upward to the outer edges, adding an aristocratic disdain to the scowl she so frequently wore. She was lying on her side, and her plump breasts pressed together in a dangerously tempting curves. And it wasn't her physical attributes alone that stirred him. She was the most unusual woman that he had ever encountered. Whatever had shaped her temperament, she was a curious blend of cautiousness and audacity, and he began to realize that she had a clever and quick mind. So she was unafraid to thrust her chin in the air and shout at him. He suspected what that audacity was more her nature, while her cautiousness was a learned thing. Her audacity would serve her well in the trials to come, and there would be many. He poked at this he poked at his memory fragments, which were still frighteningly incomplete. He had 2 days to reclaim perfect recall. It was imperative that he isolate and study every detail of what had happened prior to his enchantment. With a heavy sigh, he turned his back to the fire and stared out into the night at a world he didn't understand and had no desire to be a part of. He found her century unsettling, felt bombarded by the unnatural rhythm of her world, and was comforted by the knowledge that he wouldn't have to spend it too much longer in it. As he listened to the familiar sounds of the night, a humming a in the air few would hear, a strange intermittent thunder in the sky. He reflected upon his training, sifting through neatly compartmentalized vaults of information stored in his mind. Precision was imperative, and he subdued a surge of unease. He never He'd never done what he would soon have to do, and although his upbringing had prepared him for it, the possibilities for error were immense. His memory was formidable, yet the purpose for which he'd been trained had never been taken into account. The possibility that he would not be Castle Kelter when he performed the rite, and thus would not have access to the tablets or any of the books. Position here. Super awkward sitting in this chair for a long time. Where am I at? 2 hours? Alright, I'm gonna go to the next chapter and then we're gonna call it a night, which is too long. Alright. The possibility for error was immense. The memory was formidable, yet the purpose for which he had trained had never been taken into account. The possibility that he would not be a Castle Kelter when he performed the rite, and thus would not have access to the tablets or of the books. I know I reread that. I had to. Although it was widely believed that the Druidry had waned, leaving only inept practitioners of lesser spells, and that the ancient scholars had forbidden written of any kind, both beliefs were myths that they had been cultivated and spread by the few remaining Druids themselves. It was that they wished the world to believe. The Druids were ever adept at illusion. On the contrary, Druidry thrived. Although the prone to melodrama British Druids scarce possessed this knowledge to cast an effective sleep spell in Tristan's estimation. Many millennia ago, after the Tuatha De Danann had left the mortal world for stranger haunts, their druids, mortals and unable to accompany them, had vied among themselves for power. There had ensued a protracted battle that had nearly destroyed the world. In the horrifying aftermath, one bloodline had been selected to preserve the most sacred of the Druid lore, and that the Celters' purpose had mapped out heal, teach, guard, enrich the world for the wrongs they'd done it. The fabulous and dangerous knowledge, including scared geometry, sacred. The fabulous and dangerous knowledge, including sacred geometry and star guides, had been carefully inked in 13 volumes and upon 7 stone tablets, and the Celtar Druids guarded that bank of knowledge with their souls. They tended Scotland. They used the stones only when necessary for the world's greater good, and that they did their best to quell the rumors about them. The rituals he would perform at Bondracade required certain formulas that must be without error, and he was uncertain of at least 3 of them. The 3 critical 3. But who would ever have believed he would be trapped in a future century? If they arrived at the stones and the castle Kelter was gone and the tablets were missing, well, that was why he needed Gwen Cassidy. Bandracade, his beloved stones, were the White Bridge, the bridge of the 14th dimension, time. Millennia ago, Druids had observed that man could move in 3 ways: forward and back, side to side, up and down. Then they discovered the White Bridge, whereupon they could move in a 4th direction. 4 times a year the bridge would be opened, and 2 equinoxes and the 2 solstices. No simple man could avail himself from the White Bridge, but no Celter had ever been simple. From the beginning of time they had been bred like animals to be anything but. Such power, the ability to travel through time, was an immense responsibility. Thus they adhered unfailingly to their many oaths. She thought him mad now. She would surely abandon him to overburden her mind with more of his plans. He couldn't risk telling her anything else. His druid ways had made too many women flee him already. For what time they had left together in her century, he'd like to continue seeing that glimmer of desire in her gaze, not revulsion. He'd like to feel the simple man with a lovely woman who wanted him. Because the moment he finished the ritual, she would fear him and mayhap, nay, assertedly hate him. But he had no other choice. Only the ritual and a fool's hopes. His oaths demanded he return to avert the destruction of his clan. His oaths demanded he do whatever was necessary to accomplish that. He closed his eyes, hating his choices. If Gwen had awakened during the night, she would have seen him, head tossed back, gazing up at the sky, speaking softly to himself in a language dead for thousands of years. But once he had spoken the words of the spell to enhance sleep, she slept peacefully until morning. I would love to know what you think of this. Hey, Fancy Wonder. Oh, if you're interested in getting the book, that is what it looks like. I keep losing my pen. Yeah. what it looks like. So, I hope you liked it. I will continue reading tomorrow night. That was very cool. Awesome. I'm glad you liked it. If you have any questions or if you would like to know more about the book, let me know. We've had this book in this house so long. It's so dusty. Like you can't tell. But every time I flip a page, it's like in my face. Yep. Every night at 10 p.m. if you'd like to join me for more bedtime stories, I'd be more than happy to accommodate you. I have several. Pretty much of any kind. So I hope that helped to be able to get you through your evening. And I go live at 10 a.m., 5 p.m., and 10 p.m. daily. I'm a variety streamer, so it's kind of random. And I don't even know what we're going to do half the time. So, yeah, I hope y'all have a wonderful evening. I pray that whatever that fire is, that they got a hold of it and that nobody's hurt, because that was crazy. And so yeah, feel free to join me at any time and check out my other social media. I do have Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, OnlyFans, FetLife, Twitch, Twitter, Discord, TikTok. I'm trying to think some others. Pinterest. I don't know. A lot. So feel free to check them all out. Pretty soon I should be able to get all the links up and running. So. I should read Dracula? Why Dracula? My leg is like numb. I'll be honest, this is the first book that I will be reading in full since 6th grade. And believe it or not, a romance novel is the reason why I stopped reading. I was reading a romance novel in class, and my teacher took it away from me and said that it was inappropriate for me to be reading. And my mom had given it to me because it was the only book that didn't have pictures. I didn't lie about reading it. So she knew I read it because it didn't have any pictures in it. So, yeah. So, this will be the first. I'm kind of excited because it also the character that's in here, she seems like, and I feel very relatable to this character. So, I don't know. Like her personality and like her past and like all this stuff is like super relatable. I don't know. And her belief system as well. Be nice to have a partner like that. The descriptive part of it, you know, him saying how he wanted his wife to be. I've been single for a while now, so, and I've been divorced for over 10 years, so, yeah. I don't know. Not everybody's looking for the same thing, and that's cool. I'm open-minded, so it is what it is. Thank you, James. These are reading glasses. They're not even mine. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's the only way that like, I can continue to read these pages. So, and they like squish the side of my head. I need like regular glasses. So, what do you guys think? What do you think about this? I'm gonna move this over. I'd love to hear your feedback. The sides of this thing is like digging into my armpits. Y'all are probably like, it's a book. You read it. Just shh. think about the fireplace in the background? Did you like that? You like my little mood lighting that I got? Little pumpkins. I'm trying to bring Thanksgiving back. Y'all having a good Friday night? I hope you're very safe and you're not drinking and driving. Um, you're having a good time, chilling out, relaxing with me. If y'all have any questions, I can leave the floor open for questions if you have any questions about me or anything. Don't be shy. No need to be shy here. I'm the only one that's allowed to be shy here, and you can already tell I'm not very shy. You do a great job reading. Great voice. Thank you. Very cozy. That's good. I'm glad. You know, adults need like a break too. You know, when we're kids, we have all the freedom in the world. We don't care about anything, right? Life sucks because our parents told us to clean our room. I know you're not. I like that. Well, I'm glad you like it. But yeah, I feel like adults need like a wind down time, you know, to relax and unplug and get away from the world for a little while and get back into our imaginations and just chill out, you know? Just chill out. It's hard to do that sometimes when the world is the way that it is. So, you're not shy. I'm glad. I'm glad you're not shy. I'm shy in person. Ask John. I am so ridiculously shy in person. I'm like the complete opposite of my online personality. I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, if you have any questions for me, I don't know. You got John. You came in after, but I got these awesome little like. It's not bad for Dollar General. That's pretty cute. I'll be honest. It's Ferrero Rocher. Let's see if I can find the lid. I may have it on the back. Yes, I do. Okay. I'm try to get this lid off without dumping them all. And again, my stuff is not sponsored. That's I've got it at Dollar General. Like of all places, turned around and it was in the Christmas section, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get me some of that, and I'm gonna read some stories tonight, and then I'm gonna chill out with my online family, and we're just gonna have a good night, just chilling, hanging out. Look, it's like little hazelnuts in like this little chocolate cup thing, and then there's another one that's like it's pretty. I don't know. Do y'all like chocolate? I know some guys they like sweets. Some people don't. They like savory stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. I like dark chocolate the best, to be honest. But it can't be like super cheap, like waxy. So it's nasty. And also gets it'll get you sick too. Yeah. Monster Jam in the house. What are you doing up so late? Oh wait, never mind. You're like what? Gonna be 23 next week? 23 or 28? I always get them mixed up. I can't keep up with my kids' ages. 23. You are like a baby yet, and you are probably out having a blast. I was earlier. I need somebody to feed them to me. Maybe. There's a possibility I might enjoy that at some point in time in my life. What you doing, Monster Jam? You been out drinking? You better not have. I had one tonight. I had one, I'll be honest. And I thought it was called a mud dog. It's not. It's doggone. Fourth Creek Brewery. Road trip. So I was live at Fourth Creek Brewery earlier, and I'm doing good. I hope you are. I hope you had a good day today in class. Oh wait, no, you didn't have class today. Or was that yesterday? All the days like kind of mixed together for me. Yeah, because I watched you live earlier. You were playing the video game, and I was looking like a creepy sucker chick. Are you ready for Saturday? Next Saturday. Not this Saturday, next Saturday. You ready to be the big old 23? God. What was I doing when I was 23? I think I was pregnant. All my kids are 2 years apart. And I know for a fact that I was pregnant at 21 because on my 21st birthday, I went to Red Lobster and had a lobsterita. And I was worried that the one little shot that was like in the bottom of this huge glass was going to affect me somehow. I don't know. I was nervous. Just laying down talking to me. Awesome. I'm trying to keep like my voice low so this way it's not like super edgy. Well, I'm glad you came and you were chilling out with me. Did you end up winning your game? Or did you, like, what was the score? John, we need to either A, write down the poetry that you have online, because I would love to read the new stuff that you put out there. And I definitely, that one that I, like, put the heart on, I want that one. I want to make it a song like these other ones that we was talking about. And just for those of you that have joined us, thanks to John Jarrell, my dreams of going to Biltmore are coming true. We are going to be going together to a candlelit Christmas dinner tour of the Biltmore estate, which is like a castle. It's awesome. Talking about 2K? Yeah, the basketball game that you were playing earlier, right? I think that was it, wasn't it? No, because you weren't playing the other one. My screen froze up a bunch, so yeah. James, where are you at? Like, what state are you in? Because I'm in North Carolina. You win 3 games, Monster Jam? I always want to call you by your real name. I think if I leave it your tag, then you'll be okay. Like, I won't get it messed up. I just read it straight off the screen. I'm glad I added you on IG though. I finally got to see your face. I like seeing people's faces like that I meet on here because they can see my face. But I have no idea what they look like or what gender they are or anything like that. Like, I don't know anything. Which, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, you can ask me a question if you like. Mm. That one's got like hazelnut in the middle. You make my day every day. Oh, thank you. You make my day too, because I really get excited when you guys come on live with me, and you're very consistent, like every day. I think you got my schedule down pat now. It's almost like I expect you to be here at some point in time during the stream, and it makes me excited. It makes me happy. As you can tell, my pitch and my voice gets really high, like, let's jam! For those who don't know, Monster Jam is turning 23 next Saturday, and we're having a huge birthday bash. I'm making them a cake. And there's going to be a surprise at the end. You said you wanted it at 5 p.m., right? Because I'm going to take the 10 a.m. I'm going to do the behind the scenes and get the cake ready and stuff. And then at 5 p.m., we'll do the big bash. I'm hoping that you're out of you have practice tomorrow. I'm hoping that you're out of those games before. If not, it's not a big deal. I'll just stream it regular, and then I guess I'll leave it open for a replay later. I'm gonna stop the page for a second. Hold on. I want to like put a heart on the one that said you need someone to feed them to you. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do like the replies for some of this stuff. You're gonna try to make it? Okay, that's fine. Like I said, even if you can, it's not a big deal. It's just the fact of the matter. You know? I'm glad that we're able to do that for you. John, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I was born ready to go to Biltmore. So we're doing like this split thing, right? So he's got the tickets and I'm taking care of dinner. So this is like an awesome, awesome day. It's gonna be like fully packed. So I probably shouldn't wear heels because we're gonna be walking like everywhere, and that place is huge. Have y'all seen Biltmore? Monster Jam. Have you ever seen Biltmore? James, do you even live in this area? I can't see your profile from here, so I have no idea. I'm one of those people, yes, I will look at your profile to see where you live. And most of the time, y'all don't even update your stuff. Like, it's like from forever ago. Okay, so I'm going to show you. I'm excited. I want to show it to you. Hold on. I'm going to show you what Biltmore is. This is where we're going. John and I are going. Biltmore Christmas. Ah, dang it. Okay. Christmas I've built more. Bam. Hold on. I'm going to share a screen. I know I'm like in your face right now. Hold on. It's going to reverb for a second, but I'll click it over real quick. All right. This is built more. Look at how beautiful that is. It's a castle, basically. It's gorgeous. And each room is decorated completely different than next. Like here's one of their grand halls. How awesome is that? I want to live there. I want to live there. I want to just go into like their library and like be a weird creeper and smell their books. And like go and be by the fireplace. I think one of these shows a picture of the fireplace. Yeah. Look at that. That's a like daydream fantasy stuff is made of. It's crazy. Like it's huge. Look at how many floors this. Just like the front of it's got like what? One, two, three, four, and then you figure this is another floor, so 5 floors, six, maybe a seventh attic area, maybe. So for the most part, you got at least 4 or 5 floors, and I don't even know how many like how many rooms there are. Look at this. Look at that. Oh my god. Like I hate the furniture, but whatever. Like it just goes with the rest of it, I guess. I don't know. That's just me. I'm gonna cut this out real quick. How to turn off. Okay. Yeah, that's where we're going. I know. I always get that angry face, like the little scrunched up face, because I can't see shit. I'm excited. If I could just find my damn dress, I'd be even more excited. I'm going dressed up. John, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm going dressed up. I'm gonna be really done up because I've got this really pretty dress. Goes like right here across my shoulders, and then it's form fitted, but at the bottom it's got like this train, and it's black lace. Like the whole dress is black, but it's got like this black lace out from the back of it, and like stripes, like strips of black lace and stuff. Fuck the haters. I'm going fancy. I'm freezing. Golly, the temperature must have dropped immensely. Need a fireplace in this mug. Hope you all are having a wonderful Friday evening, and thank you for joining me. If you've just joined me, I was reading a romance novel, and we're just chit chatting. You feel free to ask me any question that you like. I am a very open minded person, and I'm more than happy to try to assist you in any questions that you may have. Feel free to check out my other social media. You might find something you like. Anybody still with me from Facebook? I think John got off of. I hope not. So it's just showing off the pictures. Yeah. I'm going to try to take as many pictures as I possibly can. It's going to be like, I might as well just go get a new phone. Because mine are full. I don't know. Like, I want to get, I might bring Sissy's camera, John, and like get an SD card and just take pictures all the time. If you had a chance to go, um, if you all know what I'm talking about, Biltmore Estates, what would you wear? If you were able to go to like a really like fancy, I don't know, just something really fancy, either like a dinner date or whatever for the holidays, what would you wear? And what my favorite question now is What cologne would you wear? Because I am big into men's cologne. I'll even wear it myself sometimes if I really like it. I'll mix it with something that I like that's female cologne and make like my own like designer scent. Um, make my streams like lagging. Okay, you don't know. A good easy transition to go from unknowing, not really knowing much about cologne to going into like some of the more richer ones are, at least that I've found, and I could be completely wrong, but this is just from what I found. I went to Bath and Body Works, and the only thing I don't like about that company is the way they do their stuff. It has a lot of alcohol in it. So, like, my show was good. It was really good. I got a good couple of chapters in. I think I'm doing about, on average, 3 chapters for 2 hours. Because, again, like, my reading sucks. So, I always have to read it and then, like, try to enunciate the words. Hooked on phonics really did not work for me. So, but yeah, I think it went pretty good. But yeah, if you want to, one of my favorite, and this is like very basic, there's nothing really super fancy about it. This is just men's cologne. The, I think it's called Bourbon at Bath and Body Works. It's a good starter to like get into start liking cologne, I think, for men. Another thing is too, I don't know, like some areas they don't sell these things, but men's oil, it's like a tube and like it has a roller. It's a roller tube and it has oils in it. And it doesn't like you can't get it on any of your clothes or nothing, but like you can put it on your skin, like places that would I don't know for guys. I don't know what it is wherever. um, and this does last so long, and it smells so good. I prefer like a deeper, um, more like a savory, spicy scent. I don't know, for men, not like spicy for men. It's not the name of a perfume or cologne or nothing. At least not that I know of. But, and I like spicy stuff for like women too, like a deep, spicy, maybe a little bit sweet, not too like overpoweringly sweet. And if it's floral, it's got to be super light, like just enough to touch, like maybe like a light. This is gonna sound rough, but like a light florally soap scent, but it's super light, not like detergent. you know. You like to hang out with me? I like to hang out with you too, Monster Jam. I'm glad you came live with me again. I enjoyed every time that you come live with me. I enjoy it when everybody comes live with me. The sides of this thing are like digging into my armpits. And luckily, I went ahead and put my um, heated blanket on. Oh my god, it's gonna be so comfy. I'm gonna get in that mug and I'm gonna pass out. Yes, I am that person that goes to bed like, oh, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Shoot, I didn't. I lost track of time. I was in another century. So yes, I would love for you to join me again next time when I stream, which will probably be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., which is in 9 hours. And I forgot what we were talking about. I think I was trying to get like a guest to come live with me tomorrow morning. So if you know anybody that would be interested in joining me on a live session, let me know. You know, it doesn't matter whatever kind of creativity stuff that they like, or if they just want to show something off, like if they have a collection, or if they have a job that they like to do, or like a hobby that they like, or like anything really. And let me see if I can find it. I think I put it over here. I got this cute little bit of nonsense at the store. I saw it and I was thinking of like this area right here, how I always end up putting something right here. And I really like it. It was cute. It was so tiny. I actually used to paint a long time ago. And I actually do pretty good. When I would draw, I would sell my artwork to local tattoo shops and stuff. So that was fun. And so I used to paint, and I used to have this beautiful easel and like all of my paint and all my brushes from like high school, right? Going back like 20 something years. Anyway, you're gonna miss it. You have practice. That's okay. I go live at 10:05 and 10 p.m. So you can join me tomorrow night if you like. 10 p.m. Well, wait, no. Is tomorrow? What date is tomorrow? I think I have to go to Mebane tomorrow for that live thing, and that's like an hour and a half away. Is tomorrow the 12th? Either way. So I'm gonna leave them on like a 30-day cycle. I'm not sure how Twitch does it, but I know for like YouTube and Facebook it does. It's the 13th. Did I miss it? I could have sworn he said Saturday. I'll have to double check. I'll be really mad if I missed it. Really, really mad if I missed it. Anyway, I'm supposed to go see a friend of mine live tomorrow. He's a musician. But anyways, I used to paint, and I found this little easel. I don't know if you see it. I thought that was so cute. It's legit like a little easel. I don't know, you can't see past the sticker really, but I thought that was so cool. I'm just gonna like paint this tiny, tiny little painting myself. I might do it live, you know, for Stationery Sunday or whatever, just to kind of chill out. But because I have to do the inmate letters. I don't know if you guys are aware yet or not, but I send Christmas cards to inmates all over the United States. If you'd like to join and volunteer your time, let me know. I'd be more than happy to have you join me. We get a list of 100 on average. So yeah, I'll get my list on December 1st, I think. So, but yeah, I thought that was really cute. I'm gonna do that. I'll do that Sunday maybe. I don't know. I'll set it aside. And there was something else I wanted to show you. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, so many people left too. I feel bad now. I got a new package today in the mail. I was gonna wait until Stationery Sunday to open this, but I am worse than a kid at Christmas when I get a package in the mail. So, I got this from a fan, and I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you it's most likely 18 plus. So, you guys get a special bonus P.O. box opening today. Oh. I like these little note thingies that we put in here. Oh my. Hey. Y'all don't like this. I know I do. Oh my god. They're panties. Just like the ones in the book. You know, the ones where she was like, oh my gosh, she's looking at them. Girls are like that though. At least I was. I was so like embarrassed if anybody saw anything personal of mine for a long time. I got that whole ASMR thing going on, like crinkle. So loud. Sorry. I'm trying to get y'all to relax. I'm not doing a very good job. These are boy shorts and they're lace. And they're like a bunch of colors. That is so awesome. I don't like it's so loud. It feels like trying to wrap presents on Christmas and like bring them out to the kids and stuff. Yeah, I'm Santa's helper. Some sort. But yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them in here. So during the day, um, I have outfits that I would wear that a fan sent to me, and um, there was 8 of them. So I promised that I would wear one a day every day for 8 days. Yay! So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, I like that red one. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 pairs. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. That's fine by me. But, yep. I don't know, this red one's pretty badass. I like this one. Hey, Christmas time's coming. Bring Thanksgiving back. Thank you for my fans who send me gifts. I thoroughly, as you can tell, enjoy getting things. And I very much will enjoy wearing these. So I do have a wish list if you guys would like to check it out. It is very adult related. Um, I am single. So, um, but yeah, thank you for my gift and thank you guys for coming live with me. And if you guys would like to send me mail, feel free to send anything you like to P.O. Box 5923, Statesville, North Carolina 28687. And if it's like a large package, I'll just get a note and then I'll have to go to the counter. But yeah, so I'm so excited now. Like, I can't wait to wear these. um, Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'm going to try to see if I can get a guest to come live with me. I'd love for it to be any kind of like anything. It doesn't really matter. If not, I'll probably just be singing. So then tomorrow at 5, if the date is correct, because I'm an idiot half the time and I can't keep things straight. So hopefully I didn't miss it. But I want to go live for my friend playing um, downtown Mevin. And yeah, this thing fell earlier. I gotta hang it back up. It's my little feather thingy. But, so yeah, and then tomorrow night, if you would like to join me. Okay, Monster Jam. Yeah, if you want to join me tomorrow night, I'll finish another 3, hopefully at least 3 chapters. They seem to like be completely different in size, so I don't know how long it's gonna take for me to read. And some of the words in that book are really difficult to read. Like I have a hard time enunciating them. So if I say like a funky word and it doesn't sound like it matches anything else that I'm reading, then it's probably because I enunciated it wrong. But I hope that you guys like it. And I guess that's it. So, hope you all have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, definitely. No drinking and driving, please. Um, and until next time, okay? Y'all have a wonderful night, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Sweet dreams.